Sir, it is show. It is about to start. Just right now,
Okay.
it is about to start. Yeah, it is visible now.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. So once again, good afternoon to everyone, and thanks to the organizers for this wonderful opportunity. So yesterday I was talking with the perspective of getting into the machine at first. So today I will be talking about after getting into the machine or the system, and that is the system in the sense that complete application. So what activities they can do, that is the malicious activities. So before going to that, with respect to the yesterday talk related to the authentication, I'd like to tell a few things. I was talking about the problem with the centralized authentication. So we prefer the decentralized authentication. But if this is the case, so then still we are using the centralized authentication. That is, uh, we purchase the digital certificate from the certificate authority and we use it. So actually, what happens is, if you see here, there is a certificate authority in this place. So it's like there are so many certificate authorities, and our government is also having one service as certificate authority. So this is for the authentication purpose. That is to prove to somebody that I am so and so. So what happens is the owner who want to buy that certificate, they will generate their own key pair and then send the public key to the certificate authority for the stamp. So that means they will give the certificate for that. So along with the public key, some other informations related to the organizations, whatever required, that is also sent. So then the certificate authority validates and put their signature and send back. That is the digital signature. So now the client will be using that wherever it want to prove, then it proves based on the certificate, whatever it is achieved. So one simple example I will give you for this web servers. So what happens when you are downloading any browser, whatever browser it may be, by default, there are some certificates available. Default certificates are installed. That means when you are downloading and installing the browser, by default, some certificates are already available. So they are called as the root certificates or the top level certificates. So they are considered as always the trusted authorities. So the default certificate will be there. Now let's say I am going to host my web servers. So what I will do is I will first register with the certificate authority and I will get the certificate. So this is the web server. So I registered, I got the certificate. The certificate is signed by the certificate authority. So using the private key of CA, it is signed and the browser is available with the default certificate. Now, when the client is using the browser and accessing the server, now client want to ensure that I am accessing the server, whatever I am looking for. So then what will happen is the server will send the certificate here, whatever certificate it got from the CA, that certificate will come to the browser. So this is part of that HTTPS protocol, that is SSL or TLS protocol. So the certificate comes. Once the certificate comes, this browser has to validate. That is on behalf of us, Mozilla or Chrome will validate it. So how it will validate is, it will it has to verify the signature of whoever has issued. So the certificate says the certificate is issued by so and so certificate authority. That certificate authority certificate may be available with the browser. If it is not available, immediately the browser will throw an error, a certificate error. Otherwise, what it does is the certificates are already available. The certificate contains the public key of the certificate authorities. So if the public key of the certificate authority who has provided this certificate is available with the browser, then using that public key, the certificate signature will be validated. If it is mapping, then it is considered as the one who is proving as so and so is right, otherwise it is not wrong. So now if we see, we are having the centralized authority which issues the certificate. It is not that in the entire world there is only one certificate authority. There are so many certificate authorities. We can buy the certificate from them and use it. So there are different levels also that I'm not going to discuss about it. So now, yesterday I said that if we are going for decentralized, then our system will be secure, but still this certificate mechanism is working with the centralized. So what is the need of going for decentralized? That is using the blockchain. So there are some articles I have gone through. It is written that these certificate authorities, in few cases, they are forced to issue certificate who are not deserved to have that. And second, there are cases the certificate authority get compromised. So you know what will happen if the certificate authority get compromised, then they can issue certificate to any of the users, or the same certificate may be given to different users. Okay, so those are the problems that is possible. So definitely still we are using this, but there are some issues. If we have to overcome that, then we can go for the blockchain. So for that case, we can go for the decentralized public key infrastructure. The same thing, instead of having a centralized authority, let's say this Alice and Bob, Alice will put her public key to the blockchain, and whenever Bob wants to send any message to Alice, then he will take the this is of a centralized one and this is of decentralized one. So whenever Bob want to communicate with Alice, he will pick the public key of the Alice, whatever is available in the blockchain, and he can create the session key, which is used for encrypting the communication, and encrypt using the public key and send it to Alice. So Alice is already possessing the private key. Using that private key, she can decrypt whatever the session key sent by Bob, and that is encrypted using the public key of her. So then the session key can be used. That is, in both the sides, they are having the session key and they can communicate. So like this, the blockchain can be used. So this example I have already given in the last lecture. So this is only to differentiate the certificate, that is the centralized PKI and the decentralized PKI. So for this, we can go for the blockchain. So now let's come to the main topic, which is the insider attack. So just let's consider the scenario. So this is an organization. Definitely at first, there will be a check gateway available. So whenever any user enters, first level, the authentication will be verified. Then he is or she is allowed to the system. So after the system, after entering into the system, the authenticated users can perform any activities. And so the first level is here. So once the authentication is done, we think that now everything is perfect and these guys will be genuine. But that is not the case. There are possibilities after the authentication, that is the post authentication. I am successfully authenticated, but I will perform some illegal activity or wrong activity. So this we consider as the insider attack. So this is always after the successful verification of the authentication phase. The successful means we verify the authentication and we find that he is successful, or we can say that he is the right person. We are allowing him to the network. So if such kind of person performs any of the persons perform any of the malicious activities, then that will go unidentified, because we are considering that he is already authenticated and we are not monitoring them inside. So then what will happen? Whatever wrong he does, that will go unidentified, and also it is very hard to recognize and deal with it. So, and next thing, they are more dangerous and they have more power than outsiders, as I said yesterday itself. So, in case of outsiders, they have to break multiple walls and get into the system. But here, they have the permission already. Not only the permission, they know about or they are adequately familiar with the systems. So then they can do anything. So it is like in some places they say, right, if I am into some village, then I know all my whatever the paths available in my village. If some outsider comes, he does not know. If he has to escape immediately, that he cannot do. But the one who knows that village or who belongs to that village, he can escape very immediately because he knows each and everything in the village. So the same case. So the insider, he knows, he is familiar with the system, so he can perform the attack very easily compared to the outsiders. So what makes them to perform this attack? One, we can categorize as intended and unintended. So in case of intention, what happens? They know that they are compromised, or they know that they are performing the attacks. So that is like, we can say them as the traitor or the masquerader. They are having the privilege to access the system. And in case of unintended, so they may be performing something very careless. So because of that, it happens. So that is also the reason. So whoever performs attack is attack to the system, and it is going to create a lot of damages. So it is very much required to identify, as well as we should try to prevent such kind of attacks. So yesterday I was telling, let's now consider the smart metering infrastructure. In smart metering infrastructure, we were considering that the smart meters can communicate with each other. That's what the assumption we had yesterday. And instead of only sending let's say, the smart meter to NAND gateway, sending only the number of units consumed, so it may give some additional or it can perform some additional activities. So it is like one smart meter can communicate with another smart meter and check whether power is available or not, and there is no power, and when power is expected, and if there is any message from electricity department, that one smart meter will be having, and that can be shared with another smart meter also. So instead of overloading the complete NAND gateway, the smart meters can communicate with each other. So these give some additional services. So this can be between smart meter to smart meter or smart meter to NAND. So we can consider this additional service, and we can go for further security deployment. So why this is required? So we are giving the service, like we are considering the application where the smart meter is used, and that smart meter is always going to connect with the NAND gateway. So then what happens? It's only between the NAND gateway and the smart meter, and it is like one-way or two-way communication between two of them. But since we are having this smart concept, so why don't we expand that? So when we are expanding, then more security requirements comes into the picture. So if we are going to extend the service of between NAND to smart meter and smart meter to smart meter, or one smart meter to that one region smart meter to second region NAND gateway, or second region smart meter, there are some security issues, like I said, right, that one smart meter can communicate with another smart meter. So in that case, one smart meter may give some wrong data, or it may send some wrong command. So it will be like an injection, that is a false injection. So if there is some wrong data, then the consumer will be executing the things according to whatever data comes. And next is the denial of service. Too many requests can be sent, and the smart meter may be overloaded to overloaded, and it will be in the position not able to handle any further or the genuine request. And the data disclosure, the smart meters, whatever involved, that may disclose the data that may be confidential or sensitive. And next is the cyber attack. I will come to this maybe little later. So why this one is required in this place. And then the colluded attacks. So when we are having the system, so we can say that individually performing the attack and the colluded. So one is insider we have considered and outsider. And here you see individually and colluded. So individually, a smart meter can perform the attack, or in case of colluded, they all will, some set of smart meters will collude each other, that is, they join together and go against any smart meter. For example, in blockchain, I hope you might have gone through this attack, Eclipse attack. So if any questions, then please, you can raise that. So in blockchain, what happens, the network is distributed. So it will be like this. So we can say the network will go like this only. So now what happens, let's say this particular node is connected with this and this. So that means if this node has to reach the entire network, it has to reach via these nodes. So similarly, if we take this node, it has to reach via this and this. And if we take this node, the complete network will be reached 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Only this. Now let us say we will consider this case. This particular node is having the possibility to connect to the blockchain network via, let's say, this as 1 and 2. Now, let's say that they form the eclipse. That means they collude each other and they form the eclipse. Now, what is going to happen is this particular node, because they are forming the eclipse against this node, that is node number 3. Whatever node number 3 sent to 1 and 2, they won't forward further. And whatever they get from the rest of the network, again, they don't give to this particular node. So in these cases, what's going to happen is this 3 is completely isolated. Okay, it is these 2 nodes eclipse. So because of that, this 3 is unable to perform any activity. It performs the activity, but it will not get affect in the system. So this is the problem with the colluded attack. So compared to individual, and when it is colluded, then the harmness will be very high. That is, it will increase the level of the attack outcome. So these are the possible attacks. So it's not that only these are the attacks, there are some additional attacks possible. And next, when we are going to apply blockchain for smart metering infrastructure, so we can compare that with the different parameters. One is with blockchain and without blockchain. If you see here, the parameters, you see that in smart metering infrastructure, it is done region-wise. And we are taking all these parameters: region, decentralization, transparency, and availability, immutability, scalability, intermediaries, trust, and the collaborative decision and cost. So we are considering all this. If we see that without blockchain and with blockchain, there are many parameters that all these parameters will be having problem. So when we apply blockchain, then we will be having better advantage of using or considering these parameters. However, when we talk about the cost, if we are not going for the blockchain, it is less. And when we are going for blockchain, then it is high. That we have already seen that because of the additional computation requirement and the storage requirement, this always increases. So now how we can identify this insider attack? Because we have authentication mechanism and access control mechanism and encryption where you can ensure the confidentiality, but that is not going to give some wrong behavior of any of the nodes. So then what we can do is we can go for reputation model, that is the trust based model. So this is not new, this is very old concept, but we can apply here. So in case of the reputation, what we see is we see the activity of the node, how they are behaving in the network. Accordingly, we will categorize them into some category, maybe trusted or untrusted. So like that, we can categorize. So when the nodes are categorized, and if any request comes from those nodes, then what we can do is we know the list that whether the category, whether the node belongs to a trusted or untrusted. If it is untrusted, then we will drop the message or that is the data or request comes from so and so machine. Otherwise, we consider that. So that means the reputation of each node will be considered before accepting and operating on the message. So this is based on the behavior of the device in the network. So how we will the behavior is will be making some sending the message between the smart meters. So we are considering the scenario, right, where the smart meters can communicate with smart meters and smart meters can communicate with the NAND gateway. So when they are making some activities, that is for the communication. So from that itself, the node which faces the problem of accepting or executing that message can say that this node is trusted or untrusted. But again, we will not go based on one node. We will see more than one node. Otherwise, what will happen is intentionally some node will blame on others. So then that will get penalized. So that's why the model should have the proper mechanism how you are going to decide that some node as let us say trusted or untrusted. So nodes will, when we are going to use the blockchain, then there are two types of activities possible. One is on-chain activity, that is the blockchain activity, and another one is off-chain, that is without blockchain, they will make the communication. So when we talk about the smart metering infrastructure, it is very much clear that we are going for the permissioned blockchain, because those who are going to get the connection, that is the electricity connection, we know that they will be first registering. After that only they will be installing the smart meters at their place. So they all are known beforehand. So yesterday itself we have seen one flow diagram where it says that if you know all the users already, then you go for permissioned blockchain. So we choose the permissioned blockchain. Next is the network is dynamic. So dynamic in the sense the node can be increased, that the number of smart meters at one point of time, maybe in a village or in some region, it will be of 10 smart meters. Later, it will be increased. So that's why it is dynamic. So the communication is, so here we are going to use the blockchain. So the communication, as I said, it can be between smart meter to smart meter. You can see this. And it can be between the NAND gateway also. So if you see, the OC refers that off-chain communication. And here, this smart meter can communicate with the NAND gateway also, which is for off-chain. So here, there is no blockchain involved for the communication. But to verify some things, the blockchain can be used. So the blockchain can be used in the sense the data of the blockchain can be utilized. So now next, if we see the blockchain related communication, as I said in the last lecture itself, the smart meter cannot directly register at the smart meter. It has to send the necessary details to the NAND gateway, and the NAND gateway will register the node into the blockchain. That means the smart meter is also part of the blockchain application. So here, if we see that the smart meter sends the registration request to the NAND gateway, and the NAND gateway creates a transaction and puts into the blockchain. Once the transaction is committed into a block, then the NAND gateway sends the registration confirmation message to the smart meter. So now it is considered a smart meter is also part of the blockchain. So now the smart meter can access the blockchain. So here it is very much required. Blockchain is something not like it is separated. It is also part of this. That means NAND gateway is one of the participant in the blockchain, and smart meter is the blockchain is also participant, this one and this one. Okay, maybe one or smart meters, one or two smart meters, or some few smart meters may not take part because of that configuration requirement as we discussed yesterday itself. So now it is like the same setup will be here also. So let's consider this as A. So this will be here also, and here also. So because we know that, right, the blockchain, whatever we have, so that will be of the participating nodes will have exact copy of the blockchain. So like this, we can have the model. And I will go more detail about that. But before that, we have to understand how we are going to store the data. So in the blockchain, as I said already, it has two parts. One is the data part and another one is the header. So this is the header and this one is the data. Just a second. So now, as I said, that there will be a hash tree, that's the Merkle tree, and that root will be present in the header itself. So even though this data is not available, even if the data is not available with some of the nodes as light node and the full node, they can validate this data using this information. So that is what the advantage of having the Merkle tree on the blockchain. So it grows like this. Now, let me give the brief introduction about the Merkle tree, then we will go to our requirement. So you can see this is the Merkle tree. Let's say that I have 8 transactions. Okay, these are the transactions. So how the Merkle tree will work is, so the hash of this particular transaction is computed and this transaction. So like that for each and every transaction, the hashes are computed, and that is the leaf node now. This is not the leaf node. These are the actual data where it has the pointer from these leaves. So next level of this node will take the hash of these two, left and right child, and concatenated, and this gets again given to the hash function. It produces the output. That is the value of this, and similarly for these nodes. And when it comes to next level, again the left and right, it's like the recursion. So finally, this root is of this particular hash and this particular hash concatenated, and then for that the hash is computed, that becomes the root. So now this one will be available in this place. So now if we see, if any of the users or the participants is going to make a change here, okay, so let's say that we have the light node which has only the root, and there is a full node which has this complete tree. Now the light node request for, let's say, the block number 3, MB3, that is the transaction 3. So now then the full node, so light node has this root also now request for MB3, that it requests for the transaction. So now what happened, this particular full node will send MB3. Once the MB3 comes, the light node cannot validate, because with only this transaction, that is the message block 3 transaction and root, it cannot do anything. So it needs some additional information for the validation. So the additional information is, let's say this one is required. and this is required, and this one is required, and this one is required. So now what happens? This MP3 comes. For this MP3, light node will compute the hash. So that means it gets this L1. And also it is getting this R1. So now concatenating, this one is computed. Now this one also comes along with the MP3. Now taking these two and this one also computed. So now this is also came from the full node. By considering this, the root is computed. So whatever root computed and whatever root available, both will be mapped. If it is same, then the MP3 is correct. Otherwise, it is wrong. In case this MP3 is modified by this full node as MP3 prime, then the hash, whatever to be computed here is different. And when we merge, then this will be different. Again, if we merge, then this will be different because it is having the cascading effect. And merging here with this, because it is already modified, so this will be also be modified. So this will not map. So then the light node will come to know that full node is giving some wrong information. Okay, so now this is the concept used in the Bitcoin to store the transactions. That ensures that the transactions are not modified. So now how we are going to use this for our application, that is the smart metering infrastructure. So what this Ethereum does is, Ethereum has the world state concept. That means the recent information we can pick from the latest block itself, and the world state will be having the latest updated state. And the another thing it has is it uses the Merkle-Patricia tree, and it ensures that there is no modification happening. So here it is the modified version of Merkle tree, that is Merkle-Patricia tree. So there should be Merkle-Patricia tree. So here you see the state root, that is, this is for Ethereum. And this state root is part of the block header. And this Keccak 256 refers the hash function, which is of SHA-3 version hash function. And in SHA-2, there is a possibility of length extension attack. So they have chosen this SHA-3 version. Now you see, these are 4 different account holders. So you know that, right? In Bitcoin, it works based on the transaction. In case of Ethereum, it works based on the account balance. So these are account balance. This is the address. So where we are saying, as per the figure, it is given as the key. So address of different users and their values. Now you see how it is stored in the Merkle tree. So this is like the radix tree. We can see that we are taking, so you see there is a prefix and there is a shared nibble and then the pointer to the next node. So this prefix says that you can see that 0 means extension node, 2 means leaf node. So 0 and 1 refers the extension node, 2 and 3 refers the leaf node. So here 0 refers that this is the extension node, that means further nodes are there. And A7, because you see there is common thing, so that's why the A7 is taken here. And the next node is the branch node. So because this is not going to hold anything, it is going to further extend it. So because there is a possibility that from 0 to F only we will be having, since it is using the hexadecimal in the address. So that it has from 0 to F, and if the value present, then it gives that value. But anyway, here there is no value at the end. So now if we see A7 is over, 1, 7, F7 are there. So 1 is chosen, 7 is chosen, and F is chosen. So if we see for 1 that this is the only one address available, so then it goes to the leaf node. So the leaf node have the prefix as 2, and then whatever it ends, 1355. Now if we see A7, then 1 here, and then 1355. So this is the node of this particular user. That is a particular address. So that comes here. And second, when it is 7, there are 2 nodes. So again, it goes to the extension, then it goes like this. So finally, this is for the second one, and we can say the fourth one, and this is for the third. So it is 2. So now you can see here, the extension node is referred with 0 as well as 1 with a box. So what it says is, when we are going to read the data, if it is in the form of bytes, so then it will increase the speed. So that's why what they do is, if the data is not in case of bytes, and if it is having sufficient data, then what we can do is we can move this 7 to this. So now it is 37, it becomes the byte, and accessing the data that is from the hardware will be much faster. So that's what the intention here is. So this is what used in the Ethereum. So now we can use this concept. So instead of the value, we use our parameters, whatever we want to store. So since we are going for the reputation, so then let's go for the, so what we can do is we will store the reputation value of each and every node in this. So you can see here, every node is having one leaf. Okay, that means whoever is going to participate, that whoever is going to have the address, all of them will be having a leaf node. So, and that will be used. So when everyone is going to have the leaf node, then we can put that each user's trust score in this. So that is what the intention is. So now here you see what is the node structure. Here it is having the key and then the value. So now we may modify this. Okay, instead of only value, we are going for the trust score, Bloom filter, region, and then the incentive. So the trust score is the one we are going to store about each and every node, but the way how you are going to compute and store it is up to you. And next we are using the Bloom filter. I will let you know the reason. And the region, because we cannot say that one smart meter can communicate with any other smart meter in that smart grid. So it should be into some region. Next is incentive, because the nodes are performing some activity. It is very much required to give some incentive for the nodes. So then we have to make transactions. That means, as I said, in blockchain, everything works like a transaction. So we have to put transactions. So then only it will get into the blocks. So we consider 3 types of transactions. One is the join. So here join refers that whenever the new node comes, it approaches the smart meter, NAND gateway. Then the NAND gateway register that smart meter into the blockchain. So that means smart meter cannot directly join. So through the NAND gateway, it joins. So after joining, the smart meter will get the confirmation message from the NAND gateway, and then it can perform blockchain as well as off-chain activities. Next is for incentive. Since we are going to give incentive for activities, and that is recorded in the blockchain, and whenever the incentive is claimed and whatever incentive gained has to be adjusted according to that. And next is the trust score about, so we say that, right, each and every node will put the trust about other nodes so that it can put through this transaction. And next is, these are the transaction which is to add into the blockchain, that is going to change the state. And this one is only reading. So we can say this is the write operation, and here this is the read operation. So what kind of data we will access? We will access the trust score of any node and the incentive of it. So what is the incentive it has? Because before we are going to reimburse for the incentive, it is very much required how much incentive he or she is having, or that device is having. Here we should not mention he or she, it's the device. So why the incentive is required? See, usually what happened, if we see the application, any application, or let's take the Bitcoin. So we know that mining is very hard, then why people are fighting to mine the block? Can anybody say why people are fighting or competing to mine the block when it is going to consume lot of energy, lot of money, and lot of e-waste, lot of damage to the nature? So why they are competing? So in Bitcoin, there are nodes which does mining and they compete with each other. Definitely only one. So let's say that block number 4 is getting mined. Even though 1,000 or 10,000 or 1 lakh nodes try to mine the block, and let's say they have successfully mined the block, even then also only one block will be considered as the part of main chain. Remaining are like fork that is not going to have any value. So if it is so, then why all of them are trying to mine the block? Why they put that much effort and they set up very high level or high configured data center for this, or the computation center for this? So any of you having idea? It's not very complex, it's very simple one. Okay, that is because of the reward. And that reward is too costly. And if we see that Bitcoin to INR or US dollar, that is huge. That's why people are very much interested to do mining. But when we are going to apply the blockchain to any other application, so for smart meter, if we are asking to do the mining, because there is no money involved there, so who will do that? Nobody will do that. Because why should they waste their resource? They will not definitely do that. And in that case, the permissionless blockchain is not going to work. So, and also we know all the users, so we are going for permissioned blockchain where Byzantine fault tolerance is required and which is not complex. And next we are saying that there can be many services. And based on the service, you put the trust score. So if, again the question, why should I do that? What advantage I am going to get? Why I have to do this service? And why should I say that this person is good or bad? What I am going to get? See, if you don't give any advantage to them, definitely they will not going to contribute. So if we take the application will have the bootstrap nodes, that is the developer nodes. They will do all the activities, whatever is expected, because they are the owner of it. But that is not sufficient because we want to decentralize it. We want all the participating node to perform all these activities. So then how it is possible? So that can be done through incentive. Okay, so for their activities, if we give incentive, then only they will do the work. So when they are performing the activities in the network by taking the incentive, then what happens? The security of the network will increase. Because if somebody says that or identify someone as malicious and reporting, and someone identified as malicious and not reporting, definitely there is a difference. If you give incentive for identifying and reporting, then the security of our network is going to increase. So that is the reason we need to give incentive in our application if you are going for decentralized. If it is centralized, then there is no problem, because the job of that centralized authority is to do that, and they will do, and he or she or that machine is the owner of that particular application. So then it is going to happen. But in case of decentralized, we cannot do like that. We have to encourage the participating nodes to actively take part in the application. So next I was telling about the Bloom filter. So why I talk about the Bloom filter here is, let's say that each and every node is giving the reputation score in the form of 0 and 1 to other node. And what will happen? So we know that in our voting system, one person can give maximum one vote, not more than that. But in our case, what we are considering is they can give more than one vote, but for one person, they can give only one vote. For second person, they can give one vote. Third person, they can give another vote. So why the concept changed here is there are multiple devices and any device may behave malicious and any device may help other device. So it is very much required for any of the smart meters to give more than one vote, that is vote for multiple devices, but we stop giving more than one vote for a single device. That is the target device. So the reason is if we say or if we allow any node to give any number of votes to the particular device, then what will happen? Let's say again the colluded attack, whatever we were discussing, this particular two nodes are colluded with each other. Now this will give vote, this will give vote. So it will be like this. So they will give it finite but huge. Then what will happen? This will be considered as trusted and this will be considered as trusted, even though they are performing malicious. Maybe some node which gives like negative vote and here also negative vote. But if you see the majority, these two nodes are giving good reputation when compared to this bad reputation. So then what will happen? This will belongs to the trusted. So that's why we want to control that. So they can give maximum only one vote. And next is the posted opinion is applicable for the session. We are keeping session wise. So after that session, the vote is expired. So maybe I'm not going very detailed into that. And next is if we are going for voting, this is like denial of opinion. That means it is very much required to maintain that how many votes are given by any of the nodes. Let's say that I have this array and I have 1000 machine and the array size is of 1000. Let's assume this. And each and every participating nodes is having pointer to this. So initially all these are in 0. That is 0 to 999. Whenever, let's say that 0th smart meter gives vote, so this is the array of smart meter 10. Okay, the smart meter 10 will have this because its vote will be computed. Whenever the smart meter 0 gives vote to smart meter 10, this is set as 1. Whenever the smart meter again comes to gives the vote here, then it is already 1, it will not allow. So similarly for second smart meter, third smart meter, so like this we are having. But now this array, we cannot keep array like this because sometimes the number of nodes may be very high. And you see for every node, we are going to have this array. So in this case, this is also like, if you see, part of the structure. That means along with the value, I am going to have one more parameter that is for the array storage to contain or control the number of votes. So instead of this, let us go for the Bloom filter. So what we can do is, instead of having 1000, we can reduce it to, let's say, 500 or even lesser. But you can accommodate as many more. That is more number of nodes. However, there is a possibility of false positive. That means something may not be present, but it will give us present. Okay, so that we are not going to consider as very important issue, but that has to be considered accordingly, the size to be increased. So now what happens when we are using the Bloom filter, and there is a possibility this particular slot may be used by more than one node. That is, let's say smart meter 10 and smart meter 500 may use the same slot. And now what happens, let us assume the smart meter 10 is malicious and it knows that smart meter 500 also sharing the same slot. So, and it is going to vote for, let's say, smart meter 1, and these two are colluded. So in this case, what will happen is the smart meter 10 will always goes first. Let's say the smart meter 1 misbehaves with smart meter 500. So it wants to give 0 as the vote, and this wants to give 1 as the vote because both are colluded. So before the smart meter gives the vote, the smart meter 10 gives the vote here, so it becomes 1. So initially it was 0. Because of this vote, it becomes 1. So that means this slot is filled. Now, whenever smart meter 500 comes, it may not be in position to give this vote. So then what happened? This is what the denial of opinion submission. So how we can control this? We can use some randomness, that is for each and every session, whatever we are considering, we use different random numbers so that this smart meter 10 cannot predict that smart meter 500 will also be sharing this particular slot in the next session, so that this denial of opinion will be overcome. So again, I was telling about this false positive and the extension of this. So if we do the experiment, or already the equations are given, if we do the analysis considering the number of users and the bit array size, then you can decide what can be your bit array size to accommodate so and so number of users. So here we have considered that with 75, this graph refers with the 75% of active users. So here the 75% means, let's say if there are 100 users, out of 100 users, only 75 are going to give the opinion, others are not going to give the opinion. So assuming that. And there are different Bloom filters considered. The Bloom filter is same, but the operation we have considered, we are considering only one hash operation, and here 2 hash operation, then the outputs are XOR and pointing to the Bloom filter bit array, then 3 hashes, and here again we have 2 hashes and 3 hashes. So in this case, it will accommodate 2 cells in the bit array, and this will accommodate 3 cells in the bit array for any of the vote. But in all these cases, it will accommodate only 1 bit array to register for the opinion of your device. And we have seen that it gives a lot of false positive. So accordingly, we have reduced the bit array size, and we have decided to go for the bit array size of like 400 in our case. I have not shown all the graphs. So this is one of the graphs, but we have decided to go for with 400 as the graph size. But even then, if we see here, in this case, it is having more false positive. If you are going for this particular one, it has closer to 50. That is, it is exceeding 50, but it is closer to 50. And when we are coming to 600, you see that everything is, it is lesser than 50%. So maybe we can choose this also as the bit array size. So I hope you understand why we use the Bloom filter. When the reputation is given, reputation score is given, we have to make sure that more than one reputation should not be there. So now when we talk about the solution, so we are having the reputation. That means for each and every node, we have computed the reputation, and that is available in the blockchain. So that means everybody is part of the blockchain and they are having copy of it and they have all the data. So if any node, let's say that it performs some malicious activity, then its trust score will be changed. In that case, if the trust score is changed, if such node sends any false data or command, then automatically the request will be discarded. No nodes will accept the request from the untrusted node. And the denial of service just by sending too many requests. So when it is going to send too many requests, accordingly the receiving node will give the vote for the sending node. So then the request, that whatever request, it may be the denial of service based request, that will be simply dropped by the nodes. And the data disclosure attack. So here we cannot say that just only keeping the trust score is sufficient to control the data disclosure. We need to go for the encryption mechanism also. However, if we know that some data is disclosed by any of the nodes, then we can give some negative score to that node. And next, I will come to the Sybil attack again. Next is the colluded attack. So even if they are colluding to perform the attack, they cannot successfully say some node as trusted or untrusted, because let's say if the number of nodes are 100, and accordingly we have to derive the equation. If 70% or more get colluded, let's assume the case, then we can say that the network cannot survive. But if it is less than, and it's not so easy, right? If you see the probability by checking that 70% is getting colluded, that is very, very less. Out of 100 users, 70 are getting colluded. That means the complete network is, or the application is of like under the control of the attacker. So there is no point in going for the security. But if it is less than 70, then we can have, accordingly, we have to derive the equation. So I was talking about the Sybil attack. So maybe here it will be more clear. In decentralization, what happens is we allow any node to join. So this is our application. Let's say this is our application. We allow any node to join in case of permissionless. So we are allowing any node to join. So what will happen? This particular node will join as A, will join as B, will join as C, and it will join as many IDs, with many IDs. If we see the physical availability, that is the infrastructure availability, is of one node, but it claims like 10 nodes. So then what is going to happen? This can lead the network. So actually this is what the Sybil attack is. A node with physical infrastructure for single identity will claim for multiple identities. So if this is the case, you remember that we were talking about the Bloom filter where we are controlling that one node cannot give more than one vote. But here you see one node is having multiple identities. So in our case, one ID can give one vote. So here one node is having multiple identities. So then it can give n number of votes. So then this will decide who has to be trusted and who has not to be trusted. But when it comes into the permissioned, so this is the major issue when we are going for the permissionless network. So Bitcoin or blockchain, Ethereum overcomes this through the proof of work. So in case of permission network, we know each and every user. So if this is the node, it has to go and register here and come. That is, the authority will be there, register and come back. So it cannot have multiple identities. So we can say in such an application which is permission, there is no possibility of Sybil attack. So next is this bad mouthing and ballot stuffing attack. So what these two means? In bad mouthing, what they do, the colluded nodes will send negative score to or give negative score to the node so that the genuine node will become the untrusted node. In case of ballot stuffing, the colluded nodes, they all will send positive opinion about any node so that even the malicious node will be considered as the trusted node. So if you see in this case of Sybil attack, if this node is going to have more number of IDs, then it can perform bad mouthing as well as the ballot stuffing attack. So that means it will give, if this node decides this should be the trusted node, it can give massive number of trusted vote to this. If the same Sybil node does not want this to be the trusted, then with all its ID, it will send the non-trusted vote. So then what happens automatically? This node, not automatically and quickly also, this node may be considered as genuine node or the malicious node. So this is what the bad mouthing and ballot stuffing. This attack is possible, but Sybil is not possible in this case, since the smart metering infrastructure, what we considered is permission. So how this bad mouthing and ballot stuffing is getting controlled? One is there is no Sybil attack. So then one person cannot have more than one identity. And then we are having that bit array, which ensures that more than one vote is not possible. So because of this, and next thing, the fast action on reputed turned malicious device. So there are some devices which are gained the score as trusted. So then it will perform the attack, because it will take some time to become the untrusted node. So accordingly, we have to consider the case and we have to derive the solution. That means if the negative vote for any node comes, then immediately we have to consider that node as the negative for a certain period of time. However, this is going to provide the denial of service also, but accordingly we have to, definitely there is a trade-off. One side is some malicious node will put some genuine node as malicious, and then some genuine node may put the malicious node as the genuine node. But this is not the case. That is the second one. It will be like the genuine node will put some malicious node as malicious, and another case, that is the first one, that is the malicious node puts genuine as the malicious one. So the first one is like denial of service, and the second one is like the actual integrity is shared with the blockchain users. So there is a trade-off. So accordingly, the mechanism has to be designed. And when we are going to use the blockchain for any of the applications, so it is not very problematic to use in IoT devices. Already we have tested. We have not used the smart meter, but we have used the Raspberry Pi. This result I have already shown. So the time required for accessing the data and for the transactions. So definitely compared to the conventional desktop computers, and this one will take more time, because the client device or this light device this Raspberry Pi is acting as the light node. It is not only the light node, the computational capability is also less. And the CPU usage and RAM usage also we have measured for the 100 transactions validation and then the blocks data access. So this was the consumption. Still, we have to consider the energy requirement also, because when we talk about the smart meter, definitely the smart meter will be having the power connection. So no need to worry about the power. But we want the service even if the power is not available. So that time what will happen? The smart meter will be having a battery which can have very limited energy available. So then also it has to perform the activities. If we don't consider the energy utilization, and if the case is that there is no power and the smart meters have to communicate, then it will lose the energy very fast and may not be available for the communication. So that's why, even though it is smart metering infrastructure where the smart grid comes, there is no problem of power. We have to consider the energy utilization. So this is about the insider attack I want to speak. So that means whatever node gets at first get authenticated with the help of the blockchain. After that, once they perform the activity in the network, that also we are recording, so that we will identify whether they perform the attack or not, and accordingly we can categorize any node as genuine or not. So this gives the complete solution for the network or the application where we can control any users not performing the attack. It may be either outsider or inside. And in case of the research directions, the applications, there are many applications like what we have seen, one as the smart metering infrastructure. But the problems I have already discussed with you all, that is the consensus protocol and the storage, because there are lightweight consensus, but there is a scalability issue. And next is the storage, that infinite growth of the blocks will create an issue in the storage requirement. And there are different attacks possible, but I have given only this. This is mainly related to Bitcoin. This may not be required for you, but I will let you know that the transactions, what can be done is they can take away from the Bitcoin and make the transactions. Later, they can bring the final transactions to the Bitcoin. So there are a lot of attacks possible. And next is how people have started to work with redactable blockchain. So we know that in blockchain, whatever we put, so we cannot, that is, it is virtually impossible to modify. But there are problems these days that, let's say that somebody puts some illegal data into this. Okay, or we can say that sensor data into this. So then how we are going to remove? For that, they are having the redactable blockchain. So they are saying whatever data, the block we have, this we can modify. So the concept is something different here. This will be having pointer for 2 blocks. So every block will be having pointer for 2 blocks. So through that, I'm not going to discuss more about this. You can go through this about the redactable blockchain. So now instead of when there are 2 pointers, instead of this block, this will be removed and a new block will be added into this. So that is what the plan of this redactable blockchain. This is not on implementation, but it was already proposed. And next is on machine learning. So you all know that these days everybody is interested on machine learning, and the federated learning is introduced because of the security reason. So first is the machine learning we have, but there is a problem of privacy. So privacy in the sense, let's say there are hospitals. We assume that 1, 2, 3, 4 hospitals are there, and the data has to be taken and some training has to be done. So then what will happen? All of them will give the data here, because you know the sensitivity of the medical data, but here we are giving to, all these hospitals are giving to the centralized authority, and this particular authority gives the training, and then it gives back all of them the necessary data for testing. So now in this case, there is no privacy because this party knows about the data of the patients of each and every hospital. So Google has come with this federated machine learning concept. So what happens here is, so no need of this. So or we can keep this. So whatever data they have, they will give the training here itself with their data. No need to disclose the data. So similarly here also. After that, the trained information will come to this, because all the 4 trained informations are different. Once it comes here, the consolidation happens. Consolidation or aggregation, we can say. So it happens. So now, after doing that, it will give back all of them the final data. So data in the sense which is going to be used for the testing. So now there is no violation of privacy. You can see that in case of federated machine learning, there is no violation of privacy, even though they say that whatever the trained data they are sending, trained information they are sending, maybe from that also attackers gain some information, but that one is not having high impact. So definitely the medical data is very, very sensitive. Even a bit of leakage is also going to give more damage. But here there are already works. They have taken care that no, what to say, that no sensitive details are going to be disclosed in that. And next, why don't we use blockchain also for that? Because here also it is decentralized, and it is already decentralized. What is the use of going for blockchain in this? Because blockchain is decentralized and this federated is also giving the decentralized. So one advantage we can remove this if we are applying the blockchain technology. So they all will train their own data set and then they will put it into the blockchain. That is, they all are part of the blockchain. They will keep. After that, whoever is going to do the mining, they will take the data, whatever the trained information is given, they will aggregate and they will put it instead of this particular person. So then what happens? It's only the end users are involved. No need to include any of the, we can say that trusted party or the third party in that. So for that reason, we can use the blockchain. It's not only for making someone to consolidate and give the data, whatever the trained information they are giving, maybe they can give some malicious, wrong data. Because when you know that, right, as I said, that even the partners can do something wrong. Similarly, in this case, this particular node may give some wrong data and remaining all will give the right data. And we are going to again aggregate whatever the trained data is. Because of this one, the aggregation may give some incorrect outcome. So we know that, right, in machine learning, if the data set is very, very important. If the data set is corrupted, then there is no point in using the machine learning. So similarly, in this case, if this particular node gives some wrong information, so then the complete consolidation or aggregation is going to get affected. So if we are recording all those things in the blockchain, and once we identify that this machine has performed something wrong or provided something wrong, later this cannot deny that I have not given because it is there in the blockchain. So for this application also, blockchain can be used in addition to smart metering infrastructure. There are many applications, like we can use it for health record management system, and we can use it for land record management system, house tax management system. So there are so many applications. And most of you know that Estonia, a country, they are using this concept, and what they do is they use this Merkle tree concept, and that root tree is there, right? That they print in the newspaper. So then what happens? Nobody can modify any of the things because it is printed in the newspaper and it is circulated to the citizens. Okay, if any changes, then it will impact on the hash, that is the root hash of the Merkle tree. So then it can be identified very easily since everyone is having the copy of that hash. So the blockchain is having lot of advantages, even though there are few constraints are there. If we overcome that constraints by applying different research techniques, then this can be used as one of the security solutions for the decentralized network or the applications. Okay, that's it about my talk. So if there are questions, then please let me know. I hope I am connected. Okay.
Yeah, sir.
Okay. So if there is no questions, then maybe we can end this session, madam.
Hello, Shalini ma'am. Professor Shalini ma'am.